Welcome to the Call to Lead, where founders and CEOs in the finance sector share what calls them to be a leader and offer wisdom for ambitious professionals. I'm Tracy, CEO of Windsor Edge, where we grow financial services and fintech businesses. Let's get into today's episode. I'm chatting with Winnicent Zou, founder and CEO at Qinvest. Winnicent, I know your company addresses a really important issue in the startup funding ecosystem. What is the gap and how did you discover it?
Actually, I started the research 2-3 years ago, and I noticed on the market, there's a gap. Firstly, I joined different startups, and I do have many founder friends. And we noticed that it is very, very expensive when you go to Deloitte or any consulting firms or thinking any financial consulting services. It's so expensive that you have to go fundraising. And you have to pay for your lawyers, your auditors, your accountant. You don't have that much money, but consultants shouldn't be this expensive. And I always love a quote from the co-founder of LinkedIn, Hoffman. He said, the most fundamental strategy for a startup is a financing strategy, because when your company go out of finance, it's going to shut down no matter what. No matter how good your product strategy is, no matter how good your marketing strategy is, it doesn't matter at all if you go out of money, right? So how to survive, how to extend your runway is extremely important. But we spend so much money and waste it on something else instead of like really focusing on how to build your great business. So that's a problem. And beside that, we noticed it's also super important to make decisions with data-driven results. And company, you need financial models. You need to have those modeling to support your financial decision process. If you get a CFO, then that will cost you probably over $200,000. If you get even an accountant, that'll be at least $70,000. FP&A, that'll be probably 120 to 150. No one will afford it. And if you really take a look at the startup economic, almost company before Series B, no one have a CFO. And usually what they do is fractional CFO. The fractional CFO are accountants. They're doing accounting, but you need financial modeling. You're doing finance. You're thinking about decision makings. It's not really just like adding up numbers. You need deep insight. Accounting is using the historical data to look backwards, but finance is looking forwards. Right? So that's why if the accountant, they're doing financial projections, financial forecasting, financial budgeting, different kind of thing. It's really like using the backward looking technique, trying to do the forecasting. It's linear. As we all know that the world is so complex. It's definitely not linear. And that's why it's not accurate. But for the real finance, it's forward looking. It's way more complicated. That's why, if you take a look at investment banking, all those big institutions, every day they're doing a lot of, modeling. They hire a math PhD, they hire a physics PhD, statistical economics, or even financial engineering.
A lot of companies and CEOs or any decision makers
Mhm.
think they're being data driven. What do you think is kind of the misconception in the sense that people are looking at the wrong thing, looking at a very superficial level of the data?
Mhm.
Can you think of an example of when you think you're data driven, but that doesn't matter as much as maybe what a deeper analysis might show?
Yeah, of course, there are many examples. Let's say we have clients in Vancouver, they're a hospital. The CEO is trying to figure out what is the relationship, how to boost their revenue. Depends on different doctors they should hire, the background of the patient, different ages, maybe there are lots of informations. And what the accountant do is like, they just grab all the data, for example, the revenue, doctors, the patient, they just draw a few like bar chart or line charts, like doing data visualizations. And if you're a CEO, what can you tell from that, right? Like maybe revenue per patient, maybe some kind of like metrics, like revenue per doctor, or different kind of like payment, because that's all you can do. What we can do is like we can analyze deeper. So giving an example, let's say the revenue. What we think is like maybe it will have some relationship between the patient's education level. Let's assuming from statistical data, higher education maybe will bring you a higher paid job, and that will give you a higher income. So you will have more money to really take care of your health. And you can go to different clinics or gyms or hospitals. So it's biased, right? It's biased, the data sample. We call it selection bias. Besides that, maybe higher educated people, they care about their health more. Maybe they will go to the gym more. Maybe they will have different lifestyles. Maybe they will be more careful about what they're eating, right? So take a look at the education. Maybe you will contribute more on the measurement of your revenue and support your decision, and see what is the distribution for your patient, what are the education background, and what is the policy of your area, let's say Vancouver or Toronto or Ontario, Quebec, how much money, what are the government grants or they're supporting for the local educations, and how many people are pursuing maybe a bachelor, master, PhD. There are so many things we can take a look at, right? But education is just part of it. There definitely are so many other reasons. We call it a business idea or business decision validator. We want to help the decision maker to really validate the idea, and eventually the decision will be more accurate. We leverage machine learning, data science, financial engineering. That's not something that you can do with Excel or just basic accounting rules. You need enough data. You need high quality data. And then based on those data, we're trying to find the hidden patterns that really, making an impact to the predicted value, the predicted Y, and then eventually finding all the logic behind it and supporting the decision makers.
What would be like an example of a strategic decision that one would make based on knowing, having the metrics?
You need enough data. You need high quality data. And then based on those data, we're trying to find the hidden patterns that really, making an impact to the predicted value, the predicted Y, and then eventually finding, all the logic behind it and supporting the decision makers. We did a lot of research into how investors are making decisions. Are they looking at founders' education, their genders, or their background, their work experience, or they're from the top university, or is it purely looking at the company itself? Do you have any tractions? Do you have paying clients? Do you have, the MVP or product? How many people like it? Any active users? Are investors really looking at your company itself or looking more at the people? So we have a debate on if investors are investing on people or invest on the idea or the project. They probably look at both, but which one weighs more for which kind of investors? That's also, very big topic as well. And a lot of the researchers, they do a lot of different research, and they get different opinions on that.
Do you have an opinion on it?
Yeah, I did a lot of research, and from my opinion, I think eventually it's about investing in people, investing, on the founder. And here's my reason. Because eventually I think a great founder, they can do great things. They're maybe intelligent enough and they're very knowledgeable. They have a lot of experiences. They have their insight. What do I mean by insight? Is something and 90% of people, they don't know. If everyone knows it, that's news, right? As a founder, you have to be an industry leader. You understand the area you're doing deep enough so you know more than the others. And if you're this type of founder, I'm pretty sure you'll figure out something that the others, they won't, and you're being innovative enough. However, projects, we have so many ideas. Ask any founders, they pivot a lot. Every founder, they pivot. And why they pivot is because it's not because they only have one idea and then they go all in. They have so many ideas and they just keep trying. And based on the condition of the market, based on the feedback from the clients, they keep trying, and then see, if it doesn't work, I'm going to pivot until they find a clear path to the success, right? So that's something I think it's one of the most important ability of a founder, that they have ability to pivot based on the conditions. So even the project is not going well, I think a great founder will figure it out. So that's my opinion.
I bet a lot of people who identify as entrepreneurs and as people who have vision are concerned that they have so many ideas or that they pivot so often. I think you're saying that's okay. That's potentially a sign that you're doing the right thing as well.
Yeah, because people using different investing philosophies and they are using different method, both of them are achieving great things. So I wouldn't say it's like binary, like either black or white. I would say there are probably some hidden patterns behind it. There are probably some deeper, factors behind it. It's not like I have to choose 0 or 1. Maybe I have to choose both. But my opinion is like as an investor, you need to pivot as well. You have to think about at a different stage, how can I adjust the weights? Maybe in the early stage, you don't even have a product. Of course, I'm looking at the founders, right? But if you're like Series A, Series B, I mean, yes, you're great, but your team is so big as well. Maybe I'll look at more your PMS, your scalabilities. Are you able to capture higher market shares and basically your tractions, right? There's another paper was saying founders, I mean companies like Google, Apple, Intel, when they're big enough, in the end, like the CEO is only contribute a small portion to success. And that's why the bigger company, they're trying to get like maybe more patents, more talents. And CEO is important, but I think just like what Warren Buffett mentioned, what is moat? What is a company moat? It's this sort of advantage that you're building, and this advantage can last long enough. That is your moat or sustainability, right? So Warren Buffett said is like, even you change the CEO, become let's say a ham sandwich, and the company can still run. That's your moat. Because your company has a moat. If your company is shut down immediately, then you don't have a moat because you're heavily depend on the CEO or the founder. So in early stage, we can use that as well. See if your company has a moat. If your company has a moat, then we can definitely put more weight on your firm, your project. If you don't, you're too early, then maybe we'll put more weight on the founder side. That's my opinion.
Do you have any stories or case studies around trying to be able to figure this out for a company? You thought you saw something that was a moat, but it might have turned out not to be.
Good question. Let's use the example, the current AI development. So there are many companies are saying they're AI companies, AI in legal, AI in accounting, AI in different areas. If you ask what is the moat of your firm, usually the founders will be like, oh, we're developing this technology and here are the benefits like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I don't think the others can copy. And that's actually happened 2 years ago after opening. Initially, they have like GPT 3 or 25, and then you saw that they have GPT 4, 4.0, 01 like afterwards. It's way smarter than the previous version of the GPT model. So initially, GPT model is purely like a chat box. But now it seems like GPT can do a lot of things, or even cloud or DeepSeek, like some other Gemini, like different models. It seems it can do a lot more. And now we have AI agents, we have MCP, we have, different types of companies. So for those companies, literally you're AI expert in, let's say, IBM or Google, and you must know a lot, and you're leverage your knowledge and building this cool AI tools and startups. And it seems on the market, the chatbot is not smart enough. It seems like the others, they couldn't really compete with you because you're top of the top, you're best of the best, you're the expert, you're the industry leaders. And we saw what happened. Like GPT getting smarter, they just keep upgrading. They can do a lot of things. They kill your startup. So not only just one startup, actually in the past 2 years, there are so many startups got killed. It's not about their founder. They're definitely smart, right? It's not about their knowledge or skills. They work in this industry for many years. So what is a moat right now? Like, what exactly is a moat? I think for our firms, we're also building tech. And I do think after 2-3 years, maybe the AI will be smart enough to replace us. Maybe the AI can do consulting. Maybe the AI can make judgments. Maybe it can go over even like PhD levels. Then what is our moat? Then no inside out. It's also not about the IP or patent you have, because the big firms, the giants can figure out something else to, still go around that. A lot of people thought that tech is the moat, but after 2-3 years, we realized that it's actually not. Any barriers of technology, if you think in long term, like 5 years, 10 years, it's not really a barrier. It will get resolved eventually. So I'll say that probably answer your question. Like a lot of people think that's a moat, but after 3, 5 years, you just realize, oh, it's actually not.
You more than answered the question. And I love the concept of the moat, kind of figuring out what that is and also figuring it out in this world today. But it sounds kind of like that should be a goal. You don't want people to be able to be adaptable away from you. You want to be a long-term solution that can't be easily changed to something else, right? Is that part of what strengthens your position?
I,
The challenge of leaving it?
I see what you mean. So yeah, that's a very great question. How can we make sure the duration, the durability of this advantage can last not forever, but at least for 10 or 20 years? Well, the first thing I think our firm will be the network effect. We want to build something that people want. We want to build something that the customer, they actually asking for. We want to build maybe through the word of mouth or adding more and more features that is tailored to the clients, because even GPT can do a lot of things, but still a lot of people, they don't know how to use the AI, right? And that's why so far, many companies are building AI agent. It seems like they're trying to tackle a niche problem and a fine-tuned model to solve a small, demand for a certain group of people. So I do think even AI is getting smarter and smarter, but a lot of people, they still couldn't really maximize the potential. And we want to maximize our network effect. We want to build what people want. We want to add more tailored features. So eventually the switching costs will be higher because it's so personalized. You imagine your company already using our system for 3 years. It's hard for you to just shut it down and then do something else. And we also building new features for you as well. We also want to build the brand recognitions and also access into different capitals. So those will probably be potentially the moat we have. And technology, as a startup, we definitely want the company or the clients to use our services as long as possible. For startups, usually we're trying to provide tailored solutions, customized solutions, adding new features, help you tackle that problem down with a lower cost, with higher efficient. That's basically what everyone's doing right now. But I think it's also important for the startup to be innovative enough to keep upgrading their technology. From a company's perspective, definitely you want to be adaptive, enough so you can use the latest technology. Eventually, they can help their client better and better and better. Otherwise, even though we mentioned the moat that, oh, I'm building so many personalized features for the client, it's so hard for you to switch from one to another, and it's not convenient to changing this whole system. But as a decision maker, eventually it's a math game, right? You're doing some calculations. What is my switching cost? What is the benefits I can get from using software A and system B, right? If you're not innovative enough and there's a new startup trying to figure out this and maybe sell at a cheaper price or even the same price, but higher efficiency, then based on the formula, we notice that as long as the benefits system B is providing is way higher, or if your switching cost is high, but compared to the suffering you're taking, which is also high, maybe that will lower the whole efficiency of your operating, then you're going to switch eventually. You're going to, your churn rate will keep going up. I think eventually it's kind of like a game theory. You're trying to lock in that client, but clients are not stupid, right? They're also trying to be adaptive as well. It's just to what level, to what certain level they will choose to stay or leave. And startup is trying to playing around with that number, with that level, until it's just in the summer, you're so hot, you want AC, air conditions, what temperature, what degree, right? Maybe 20 degrees, you're okay. 25, you're okay. 28, you're okay. But what if it's 35 or 40? Eventually you're being oh yes, we need to switch. And as a startup, you have to control that temperature, being oh, I don't want to I don't want it to go over to 30, right? So I think it's very dynamic, but it is a very great question. I think there are so many solutions and answer to that from different perspectives. But eventually, I think it's about, to a certain level, to what level.
I think we've entered like a really fascinating conversation here. Is there anything, you wanted to bring back closing the conversation?
Yeah, for sure. As we mentioned, we talk about so many different things. We talk about efficiency, we talk about the moat, we talk about the founders, investors, as well as entrepreneurship and how to do a project. But I think eventually it's about how to make decisions. If you take a look at all the successful people in the history, or even right now, all the great people, they're so good at decision making. It is so simple to just state that your success is about how to make the right decision with the right people at the right time. It sounds simple, but it's extremely hard. And what do we do in research? We basically trying to figure out how people make decisions and what is the consequence and results from those decision-making process. And does it make sense? Is there any patterns we can pave the way for the future entrepreneurs? For our company, we want to continue focusing on how to help the founders by bringing more efficiency, leverage our machine learning, and help them with decision makings, no matter it's about fundraising, predictive analysis, or even forecasting. We also want to help the investors with their deal sourcing funnel because it's so time consuming. They have to interview over 500 or even 2,000 great founders eventually to choose the best 20 to do the invest. Even though you just do 10 hours to analyze each one, that will be over 1 year to finish everyone. And it's almost impossible. So if we can streamline this process and make it so efficient, eventually the investors can just focusing on how to communicate with the great people and how to lower their opportunity cost. That'll be beneficial not only for the investor because they talk to more people, but also beneficial for the founders. Because eventually you don't even have the chance to talk with them, but now they have the time. They have the time to talk with you. And hopefully it will be the right time for you. And it will be the right decision for both the founder and investors. Both of them are making the right decision at the right time. So we're going to continue with that vision, and we're going to continue to contribute to this early stage ecosystem. And hopefully everyone can be a great decision maker in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I love that ending.